Ladies and gentlemen, God's timing is perfect, even when it feels like nothing is happening. It's easy to get frustrated or impatient when we're waiting for a door to open, especially when we've worked hard, prayed fervently, and done everything in our power to make things happen. We may feel like the silence is deafening or the waiting is endless, but in those moments we must remind ourselves of a powerful truth. God sees what we cannot see, and His plans are far greater than anything we could imagine. Think about this for a moment. When a farmer plants seeds, he doesn't see growth right away. Days, weeks, even months may pass before the fruit of his labor becomes visible. But beneath the surface, something is happening. The seeds are germinating, roots are spreading, and growth is taking place out of sight. God's timing works the same way. Just because you don't see progress doesn't mean it's not happening. God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events, preparing people, and aligning circumstances to bring His promises to fruition. Waiting on God's timing requires trust, and trust is not always easy. It's human nature to want control, to want answers, to want things to happen on our schedule. But faith is about surrendering that control to God and believing that His timing is not only perfect but purposeful. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:11, He has made everything beautiful in its time. That means the waiting season is not a wasted season. It's a time of preparation, growth, and alignment. Sometimes God delays opening a door because the path isn't ready yet. Think about this. What if the opportunity you're waiting for isn't ready for you? Maybe the position isn't available, the timing isn't right, or the people you need to meet haven't entered the picture yet. God is not only preparing you, He's preparing the environment around you. He is setting the stage for His perfect plan to unfold. Other times God delays because you're not ready yet. And that's a hard pill to swallow. We like to think we're ready for every blessing, every opportunity, and every open door. But God knows us better than we know ourselves. He sees the areas where we still need growth, the lessons we still need to learn, and the habits we need to break. If He were to open the door prematurely, we might step into something we're not equipped to handle. And that could lead to frustration, failure, or even harm. Consider the story of David in the Bible. David was anointed as king when he was just a young shepherd, but he didn't step into that role immediately. Years passed before he took the throne, and during that time, David faced countless challenges, battles, and trials. He spent time in the wilderness, fleeing from Saul, learning leadership skills, and deepening his relationship with God. That waiting period wasn't wasted. It was essential. It prepared David to be the king God had called him to be. The same is true for us. The waiting period is not about punishment, it's about preparation. God uses the delay to refine us, to mold us, and to build our faith. He's teaching us patience, humility, and dependence on Him. He's strengthening our character so that when the right door opens, we're ready to walk through it and handle the blessings on the other side. During the waiting season, it's crucial to remain faithful and focused. Don't give up on your dreams or let discouragement take root. Keep doing what you know is right. Keep praying, keep serving, keep growing. Remember, the waiting season is also a testing season. God is testing your faith, your perseverance, and your ability to trust Him. Will you remain faithful even when you don't see the results? Will you trust Him even when the path is unclear? God's timing also teaches us to rely on Him completely. If everything happened on our schedule, we might start to believe we don't need Him. But the waiting reminds us that we are dependent on His power, His wisdom, and His provision. It keeps us grounded in the truth that He is the source of every good thing in our lives. And here's the beautiful part. When God's timing aligns, the door that opens will not only be the right door, it will be the best door. It will be a door that leads to blessings, growth, and opportunities beyond what you could have planned for yourself. It will be a door that reflects His goodness and faithfulness in your life. So, when you find yourself waiting, don't despair. Trust that God's timing is perfect. Trust that He sees the bigger picture and is working all things together for your good. Use the waiting season to draw closer to Him, to prepare yourself, and to grow in faith. Because when the right time comes, you will see that every moment of waiting was worth it. What feels like rejection today may be God's way of steering you towards something better. Rejection is never an easy thing to face, It stings, it humbles us, and it often leaves us questioning what went wrong. But what if rejection wasn't a setback? What if instead it was a divine setup for something greater? God's ways are higher than our ways, and His plans are always for our good, even when they don't match our expectations. Sometimes rejection is God's way of saying, not here, not now, but trust me, I have something better for you. Rejection is often a redirection. It can feel like a closed door is slamming in your face, but God doesn't close a door without a purpose. When one door shuts, it's because He's guiding you to another, one that's more aligned with His plan for your life. Think about the times you prayed for something fervently, only to have it slip through your fingers. Maybe it was a job you didn't get, a relationship that didn't work out, or an opportunity that seemed perfect but didn't materialize. In the moment, it felt like failure, but looking back, can you see how God's no was actually a yes to something better? The Bible is filled with examples of rejection that led to redirection. Consider Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers. From the outside, it seemed like his dreams were crushed, but God used that rejection to position him exactly where he needed to be, in Egypt, where he would rise to power and save countless lives during a famine. What seemed like the end of Joseph's story was actually just the beginning of a greater plan. His rejection wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. Rejection also teaches us to rely more on God and less on our own understanding. When life doesn't go as planned, it's easy to feel defeated or question our worth. But rejection is an opportunity to lean into God's promises and trust that He is in control. Proverbs 3:5 and 6 reminds us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. Sometimes the path we think is straight is actually a detour, and God in His mercy redirects us before we waste time chasing something that isn't meant for us. Rejection also refines us. It strips away our pride, humbles us, and forces us to reflect. Maybe the rejection is a sign that we need to grow, to learn, or to change something within ourselves. Or perhaps it's God's way of protecting us from something we can't see. A door that looks perfect from our perspective might hide challenges, dangers, or distractions that would pull us away from His purpose. God's no is often a shield, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. One of the hardest things about rejection is the temptation to give up. It can make us feel like we're not good enough or that our dreams are out of reach. But rejection is not the end of the story. It's a chapter, not the whole book. God's word tells us in Romans 8:28 that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. That means even the disappointments, the heartbreaks, and the closed doors are working together for a greater good. Our job is to keep trusting, keep moving, and keep believing. Rejection can also open our eyes to new possibilities. Sometimes we get so focused on one path, one opportunity, or one relationship that we fail to see the bigger picture. When God closes a door, it's often to redirect our attention to something we hadn't considered, something that aligns better with His plan for our lives. That shift in perspective can lead us to opportunities that are not only good, but God-ordained. The waiting period after rejection is crucial. It's a time to reflect, to pray, and to seek God's guidance. It's not about rushing to the next opportunity, but about allowing God to reveal the next step. David, who was anointed king as a young shepherd, faced years of rejection and hardship before he actually took the throne. During that time, God was preparing him, shaping his character, and teaching him to trust. The waiting was not wasted, it was essential. So, if you're facing rejection today, don't lose heart. Remember that God sees what you cannot see. Trust that He has a plan, and that this no is leading you toward a better yes. Rejection isn't the end, it's a redirection, a lesson, and often a blessing in disguise. Let it draw you closer to God, deepen your faith, and strengthen your resolve. The door that closed wasn't your final destination, it was a stepping stone to the place God has prepared for you. Keep the faith, stay the course, and trust that when the right door opens, it will be worth every moment of waiting. When God opens the right door, you have to be ready to walk through it. Preparation is the key that unlocks the opportunities God places before us. It's easy to pray for blessings and breakthroughs, but are we truly prepared for the weight of what we're asking for? God is not only a promise maker, but also a promise keeper. However, his timing and his ways require that we do our part. The waiting period, the quiet moments before the door opens, aren't a time of inaction. They are a time to sharpen our skills, deepen our faith, and align our hearts with his purpose. Think about the story of Noah. God told Noah to build an ark, something that had never been done before, in preparation for a flood that no one had ever seen. Noah didn't wait for the rain to start falling before he began building. He acted in obedience and faith, preparing for what God had promised, even when the circumstances seemed impossible. Imagine if Noah had waited until the first drops of rain came to start constructing the ark. He would have missed the opportunity entirely. Alas, for even the closest associates, all within a few years, before its occupants began to start constructing the ark, he would have missed the opportunity entirely. This story reminds us that preparation is a form of faith. It shows God that we believe his promises and are willing to act on them even before they materialize. Preparation isn't just about working hard, it's about working smart and intentionally. It's about recognizing the gifts and talents God has placed within us and honing them so that when the right door opens, we're ready to step into our calling. David didn't become a great king overnight. Before he faced Goliath, he spent years tending sheep, learning how to protect and lead. Those seemingly ordinary days in the pasture were preparing him for the extraordinary moments ahead. The same principle applies to us. Every small act of faithfulness, every lesson learned, and every challenge overcome is part of God's preparation for the opportunities he has in store. One of the challenges we face is the temptation to compare our journey with someone else's. It's easy to look at others and feel like their doors are opening faster, their opportunities are bigger, or their path is easier. But God's plan for your life is uniquely tailored to you. The preparation he requires of you might look different from what he asks of someone else, and that's okay. Trust that he knows what you need and that the process is shaping you for the specific purpose he has designed. Another important aspect of preparation is character development. God often delays opportunities not because we're incapable, but because our character isn't yet ready to sustain the blessing. Success without character can lead to pride, complacency, or even failure. But when God shapes our hearts during the waiting period, he prepares us to handle the blessings with humility, gratitude, and wisdom. This is why the waiting period is so critical. It's not just about what we do, but about who we become. Sometimes preparation also involves pruning. God may remove certain things, or even people, from our lives to make room for what's coming. This can be a painful process, but it's necessary. John 15:02 says, "Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit." Pruning is about cutting away the distractions, bad habits, or unhealthy attachments that could hinder us from fully stepping into the opportunities God provides. Trust that this process, though uncomfortable, is for your ultimate good. When the door finally opens, stepping through it requires courage. Often the opportunities God presents don't come without challenges. The path beyond the door may be unfamiliar or even intimidating, but preparation gives you the confidence to move forward, knowing that you are equipped for the journey. Think of Esther, who was placed in the palace for such a time as this. Her preparation, her wisdom, and her courage allowed her to step into a moment that changed the course of history. When the door opens, it's not the time to hesitate. It's the time to act in faith, trusting that the God who opened the door will guide you through it. Preparation also involves maintaining a posture of gratitude and humility. When the door opens and the opportunity arrives, it's important to remember that it's not by your strength alone, but by God's grace. A heart of gratitude keeps us grounded, reminding us to give credit to the one who made it all possible. It also ensures that we use the opportunities not just for personal gain, but for his glory and the good of others. Instead, grace gives the way that comes, not so much by external stimulus, not so much by an opportunity. In the end, preparation is about faithfulness. It's about being diligent in the small things, trusting that God sees your efforts and will honor them in his time. It's about staying hopeful even when the door seems far off, because you know that God's promises never fail. And it's about being ready, not just in your skills and abilities, but in your heart and spirit, so that when God opens the right door, you can walk through it boldly, confidently, and purposefully, knowing that you are stepping into the destiny he has prepared for you. When the right door opens, it won't always feel comfortable or convenient, and it might not look the way you imagined. But faith is about stepping into what God has prepared for you, even when you don't see the full picture. Trusting God to open the right door is one thing, but walking through it is another. It requires courage, humility, and an unshakable belief that the one who opened the door will walk with you every step of the way. Think about how easy it is to hesitate when the opportunity you prayed for finally arrives. Maybe you feel unqualified, unprepared, or unsure. You might second guess whether you're really ready or whether this is truly the path God has for you. These moments of doubt are natural, but they're also a chance to exercise your faith. God didn't bring you to this door by accident. He opened it because He knows you're ready, even if you don't feel like it. Make the commitment to your hope. And if there's anything you're wondering about, don't second guess yourself. Faith isn't about waiting until you have all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. The path beyond the open door isn't always smooth. Sometimes it leads into unfamiliar territory, full of challenges and uncertainties. This is where many people hesitate, waiting for clarity or confirmation before taking the first step. But faith doesn't work that way. Hebrews 11:01 reminds us, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Stepping through the door God opens means walking forward, even when you don't know what's on the other side. It's about believing that God's plans for you are good and trusting Him to guide you through the unknown. Consider Abraham, who was called by God to leave his home and go to a land that God would show him. Abraham didn't have a map or a detailed plan. He had a promise. He could have stayed where it was safe and familiar, but instead, he stepped out in faith. That act of obedience not only changed his life, but also set the foundation for generations to come. Abraham's story reminds us that the blessings on the other side of the door often require us to leave behind what is comfortable and step into the unknown. Stepping through the right door also means embracing the responsibility that comes with it. Sometimes we pray for opportunities without fully understanding the weight they carry. God doesn't just open doors to bless us. He opens them to position us for His purpose. The opportunities He gives us are often tied to a greater calling, one that requires us to serve, lead, and make a difference in the lives of others. Walking through the door means being willing to step into that responsibility with humility and a servant's heart. There's also the element of risk. Faith isn't safe, and the opportunities God provides often stretch us beyond what we think we're capable of. That stretching is intentional. It's in those moments of discomfort and challenge that we grow the most. If the door God opens seems too big or too intimidating, that's a sign that it's from Him. God doesn't call us to tasks we can handle on our own. He calls us to things that require His strength, His wisdom, and His guidance. Walking through the door is an act of surrender, a declaration that you're willing to trust Him to do what you cannot. Walking through the right door also means staying connected to God throughout the journey. Just because the door has opened doesn't mean the work is done. In fact, that's often when the real work begins. Staying rooted in prayer, seeking God's wisdom, and relying on His strength are essential. The same God who opened the door will provide what you need to navigate the path ahead. Don't try to do it in your own strength. Lean on Him every step of the way. Another important aspect of walking through the door is gratitude. It's easy to become so focused on what's ahead that we forget to thank God for what He's already done. Gratitude keeps us grounded and reminds us that every opportunity, every open door, is a gift from Him. It also shifts our perspective, helping us to see the challenges as part of His plan to grow and refine us. And finally, walking through the right door is about faithfulness. It's not just about getting through the door, but about staying committed to the purpose for which it was opened. Opportunities are not just about personal success or advancement. They're about fulfilling God's plan for your life. Be faithful in the small things and trust that God will guide you in the big things. Remember that every step you take in obedience and faith is part of a greater story, one that God is writing for His glory and your good. When God opens the right door, it's an invitation to partner with Him in His work. It's a chance to step into a life that's bigger, richer, and more fulfilling than anything you could have planned for yourself. So when the moment comes, don't hesitate. Walk through the door with faith, courage, and gratitude, knowing that the God who opened it is with you every step of the way.